All right, welcome, Jess. Thank you so much for coming on to talk to us about how we can realign our kids' circadian rhythms and how we can connect more with nature and grounding and all that good stuff. I think these are such important and often overlooked pieces of helping our kids to be healthy and happy and have good sleep. So, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is one of my favorite passionate topics to talk about. So I'm really excited. Thank you.
Oh, good. So am I. So before we begin talking about that, tell us one thing that you did today to take care of yourself or nourish yourself.
Yeah, so I love my early mornings. It's been a thing since I learnt about circadian rhythms. So I usually get up around, my alarms are set for around 4:44 every morning. Sometimes I press snooze, depends what the night's been like with the three children. But this morning I got up at 5 a.m. and the first thing I did was walk outside. It was still dark outside, just ground my feet, just a quick connection to self and just to earth. And then walked back in and I started with a little meditation before my two youngest interrupted me this morning. So usually I get a nice, beautiful meditation in, but that's okay. They got up early this morning. So it was nice to spend a couple of extra hours with them.
Well, that's beautiful. That's such an incredible way to start your day. And I imagine most people listening, including myself, are aspire to do something similar. So today we're going to be talking off a little bit about circadian rhythms. So can we just start with the basics? Like, what are they and why are they important?
Yeah, so circadian rhythms, I did learn a little bit about circadian rhythms in naturopathic college, but not to the extent of when I jumped into a podcast, which was kind of an accidental podcast I listened to. We were actually traveling Australia and we were in Tassie at the time. And the podcast was on light, water, and magnetism by neurosurgeon Dr. Jack Kruse. And to be honest, the title didn't really spark my interest, but it was more of the bio that I thought, oh, that sounds a bit interesting. So I turned it on and it literally just like blew my mind. It was nothing that I'd ever sort of heard before, even in naturopathic college. So basically, what circadian rhythms are these biological processes that every plant, every animal, and human obviously have, and we display this over a day. So for humans, it's our 24-hour daily and wake sleep cycle. So every one of our cells, we've got trillions of cells, basically function on their own internal circadian clocks, and they kind of turn on and off thousands of genes in our body every day and every night. But this all depends on what's going on in our brain, which is like our master clock controller. And what's interesting is this master controller really, like, entirely depends on the signals it receives from the environment. So it doesn't, can't tell the time on the clock on the wall or the clock on your wrist. It's entirely from Mother Nature. So the sun, the earth, the food, and the water is how that this master clock works, and then tells our trillions of cells how to function on their own internal circadian clock. So interesting, and this is why it really sparked my interest. One of the, I would say, the most profound message that I got out of that podcast was that Dr. Jack Kruse mentions around 85 and up to 95% of all chronic disease is actually linked to mitochondrial dysfunction. We'll talk about mitochondria a little bit later. But so interesting, he said that circadian rhythms are synced through watching the morning sunrise. So when I listened to that podcast in Tassie, the first thing I did, I was actually pregnant with our third child, about 16 weeks pregnant. And the first thing I did was set my alarm for 5:45 the next morning to watch my first intentional sunrise. And I walked out barefoot, walked down to the closest little river, and I waited for the morning sun to come up. And honestly, I've been hooked ever since.
Wow, that's like quite something to stumble upon. You never know what's going to randomly catch your attention and change the trajectory of your life and your passion. And that's incredible. Yeah, so it sounds like they're it's pretty important to have these aligned. What is it like if our circadian rhythms aren't aligned? Because I think in the modern day, unfortunately, the vast majority of us are living in ways that don't support us to be connected with that natural rhythm and we're out of sync. So, what can that look
Mm.
like?
So the master clock, which is in our brain, when it is basically in rhythm with Mother Nature, it functions our entire bodily process, all our organs, our hormones, basically every cell in the body. So when we are in sync, firstly, what it could look like is we wake up in the morning, we feel refreshed and energized, and we have this beautiful, healthy bowel movement. We have a healthy appetite. We have, a clear mind and just feel clarity. We feel happy. We're ready for a productive day with motivation. We crave these healthy foods and we have energy at that usual 3 p.m. slump. And we start to feel tired as the sun goes down, and then we fall asleep effortlessly. This is what it looks like to be in rhythm. So most people can only dream of this state of well-being. Unfortunately, today, the way that we live has really significantly impacted our health. So we bathe in artificial lights. We work late, especially mothers, we're up late because that is considered as our time. We work night shift. We are exposed to a high amount of technology and non-native EMFs, so electromagnetic fields like Wi-Fi and phones and smart gadgets. And essentially we disconnect ourselves from Mother Nature as well. So we start to fall into what's called a circadian disruption. And this can kind of look like being more susceptible to viruses and infections and illnesses and all your long-term, chronic conditions such as your poor gut health and autoimmune conditions, insomnia, migraines, obesity is a huge one to do with circadian rhythms, circadian disruption, cardiovascular disease, like the list can go on. And, to sum up, these conditions all relate back to mitochondrial dysfunction. And as we spoke about at the beginning, I think I spoke about Dr. Jack Kruse mentions that 85 and up to 95% of all chronic disease is linked back to mitochondrial dysfunction.
Yeah, that's massive, isn't it? It's really taking a toll on all of our health, our clarity, our happiness. And what are some of the things that we can look out for in our lives to know that we likely are misaligned? Is it that we are staying up late and that we're not waking up feeling fresh and clear and having that healthy appetite throughout the day? Like, are these indications that we should get that circadian rhythm back on track, or are there other things that we can look out for?
Yeah, definitely. Like exactly what you just explained, feeling sluggish when you wake up in the morning and not having that pep in your step, like pressing the snooze button 10 times before finally getting out of bed. It's just that the imbalance, I think, of your bodily functions. I think we know when we feel good, if we're feeling sluggish, we are out of rhythm. And if we are not getting outside enough, if we're constantly bathing under artificial light, this is a really good sign that something internally could be going on, especially if you're suffering with any of the conditions I just mentioned, or if you have chronic and constant, infections, viral infections. These are definitely all big indicator and a big sort of knock on the door to really have a look to see whether you need to sync your circadian rhythms and whether you're experiencing a mitochondrial dysfunction.
So let's talk a little bit about mitochondria. There's something that I remember learning about in maybe as year 11 or year 12 high school biology. And I just thought they were so cool, like such incredible little guys. And so how are these, you started talking about how they're connected and how there's this mitochondrial dysfunction, but can you go into a little bit more about what that is and why these little guys are so important for us? in our health?
Yeah, so yeah, they are basically the energy producing powerhouses of our cells, I guess you could say. And they are in all of our cells except red blood cells. So they basically, mitochondria take the food that we eat to make energy, ATP, for the organs and obviously the body to function. But what's really interesting is that what I've learned over the years is that food actually only provides 1/3 of the amount of electrons that are needed to make this ATP. And interesting enough, the other 2/3 comes from sunlight. So understanding, I think, how our mitochondria function is really like fundamental to reversing or preventing disease, because poorly functioning mitochondria equals to poorly functioning organs. And the three things that I've sort of, come about with all the research that I've done and the things that I've read is there's three kind of key contributors to mitochondrial dysfunction. And what I've noticed is, like, number one, being addicted to technology. We carry around these gadgets on us 24/7. And, that's causing a disruption within our natural bodily rhythms. And number two, I would say, is a disconnection to nature. Like we'll probably speak about a little bit later about grounding, but really just connecting to the earth. It's so simple and it is literally on our doorstep. And number three, I would say, is lack of sunlight, because we're told to avoid the sun at all costs. But it is the only way to actually sync our circadian rhythm. So we'll probably get into that soon too.
Yeah. So with the sun, you're getting up early every day, getting out, grounding your feet on the earth, and watching the sunrise. Is that the most important time for us to connect with the sun and feel it on our skin and in our eyes to help sync us back? Or can we get out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and that will help us? Like, how can we start using that sun exposure to get back in alignment?
Yeah, so I would probably say the most profound shifts I found is getting up and watching the morning sunrise. That for me was like the catalyst of just really being able to sync my circadian rhythm to its optimal level. So the sunrise is amazing. There's so many amazing benefits, but basically from the very first light of the day, even before sunrise, so as the very first light starts to come up, we actually have these photoreceptors in our skin and our eyes, which are called our solar panels. And they start to detect the rising sun. And once this detection starts, it starts to release hormones to wake you up. And this is the very beginning of our natural circadian rhythm. So basically waking up, walking outside and being exposed to that first waning light. Rather than waking up and looking at an artificial light on our phone or turning a light on, an LED light, that disrupts our circadian rhythm from the get-go. So what happens is the morning sunlight is absorbed through our eyes and activates these, they're like light sensitive proteins in our retina, and they're called opsins. And they will signal the command center in our brain, which we spoke about earlier. And basically it starts to release these hormones which activate different functions in our body, such as hunger, body temperature, our alertness, blood pressure, and starts to regulate our stress response. And the other really cool thing is that early morning UVA actually starts the production of melatonin. So most people probably heard of the hormone melatonin, which is our sleep hormone, and it has so many amazing other functions in our body too. But basically, come nighttime, so at sunset, the melatonin that was made and stored from sunrise is then ready to be released. So this will happen sort of 4 hours after darkness. So the higher amount of melatonin that we have stored in our body at night actually allows our bodies to go into that rest and digest and repair and heal and really have a beautiful night's sleep. But melatonin will start depleting when exposed to Arlan, which is your artificial light at night. So this includes things like TV, you know, when the sun goes down and we put the kids to bed and we turn the TV on, and we've got LED lights on, and we look at our phones, and we've got computers on. So any light that is artificial or too bright immediately starts disrupting the circadian rhythm, and will start depleting that beautiful melatonin that your body's worked so hard to produce and store from watching the morning sunrise. So that kind of sums up the benefits of the morning sunrise. But to be honest, like, that's very briefly touched. There are so many more amazing benefits to the morning sunrise.
Well, you're motivating me to get down to the ocean to watch the sunrise tomorrow morning. It's something that I endeavor to do most days, but it only happens very infrequently. So
yes.
I'm going to do that tomorrow. And then in terms of sun exposure throughout the day, is that equally as beneficial? Or it sounds like that morning sunrise is like very, very key to getting all the processes started, getting that melatonin starting to be produced. But should we still be getting lots of exposure during the brighter daytime hours as well?
Yes, definitely. So sunlight exposure throughout the day is also a really important step to resetting our circadian rhythm. So that's really going to help with our sleep, you know, energy. We actually need plenty of direct sunlight, but, you know, we need to be sun responsible, right? So it's about taking, I feel, radical responsibility for our health and really using your intuition. That's a big thing. You know, sunrise, it contains no UV. So it's really great and beneficial to expose your skin, your eyes to the morning sun. And the main thing throughout the day is obviously we want to avoid getting burnt. So I don't use it as much now, but when I first started this, I used an app called D-Minder. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, D-Minder.
Yeah, D-Minder. And it basically lets you know what the UV, the ultraviolet light, is throughout the day. So it will locate your location. It will tell you the exact UV. And it can actually track how much vitamin D you're producing, which is really cool. So when you go into the app, you actually put in like what your skin tone is, and it'll kind of calculate what you need to produce a certain amount of vitamin D. So I tend to use that. To be honest, I don't use it much anymore because I really use my intuition now. And because I've been doing this for a couple of years. But say when I take the kids to the beach, we will usually we'll go to the beach, you know, mid-morning, and we'll be there until midday when the UV is at its highest. And we do actually live in Western Australia, very north. So it does get quite high, and we do have a really high UV here. So that's something that to be very mindful of. But that said, we don't slip and slap in a lot of sunscreen. We'll use a little bit of zinc on our nose and cheeks, but otherwise, you know, like I said, it's been about being sun responsible. So I actually let the kids run around and have as much exposure to the sun, probably around about 20 minutes. Especially when it's at a high UV, and we've got quite brown skin because we've had exposure over time, which will builds up the melanin in our skin. So, and then after they've had that 20 minutes and they've, you know, gained enough vitamin D, then we'll put the rashes on, we'll put the hats on, a little bit of zinc on their nose and cheeks. And then we always have shade, you know, we've always got shade at the beach. So that for me is being sun responsible and really using my intuition in regards to, yeah, I think the kids have had enough sun. Let's, you know, come under the shade, have some fruit, have a bit of a break. So I think it's about taking radical responsibility and avoid getting burnt is, you know, a big thing. Another thing that I love to do for sun exposure is exercise in the morning or the late afternoon when there's a lower UV. So I don't go to gyms anymore because since I found out that you're just bathing yourself in artificial light, I really stay away from that. So usually 2 to 3 times a week in the morning, I go to a beautiful little movement group with some other mums. We have all our kids there and we do like a 20-minute HIIT session, and you know, it's in nature, it's barefoot. The kids are running around, so they get some beautiful, sunlight, and it's just a really beautiful vibe. So we're getting, connection to nature, but also connection to humans as well. And we're getting movement in too. And the other thing, which if you follow me on social media, you'll know, is sun soaking in the middle of the day is like one of my beautiful circadian rituals that I just love. It's like my little time. And like I said, I used to use the D-Minder app. But now I use more of my intuition, and I actually go outside, I jump in the pool quickly. It's pretty cold, the pool at the moment, have a quick rinse off, and I lay in the sun naked. I'll do sort of, around about 9 minutes on the front and 9 minutes on the back. And that's it for me. So that's really allowing my full solar panels, my skin, my eyes, everything that I usually wouldn't expose to the sun, to really soak up that beautiful vitamin D. It's a beautiful way to sync my circadian rhythm. And since I've been doing it, I have the best sleeps at nighttime as well. So again, with that, I don't go out and do that to tan. That's not my focus or the purpose of it. It's purely to, soak up that beautiful vitamin D and set my circadian rhythm. So they're probably my favorite ways to expose, more sunlight to myself and to the kids.
Yeah, I love that. I do a similar thing with my kids where we'll go to the beach and we'll either they'll just keep their clothes on for the first bit, then inevitably they get wet. So then for the last 20 minutes, we just strip them down and they're naked, and they get really good sun on their bellies and their thighs, those spots where they are the bigger solar panels and they're not exposed to the sun as much. And I do that for myself when I go for my walks during the day. I'll roll up my shirt so my belly is exposed and wear little short shorts to just get my thighs some of that sun. And I'll wear a hat to cover up my face because that's the part that's always exposed to the sun. So yeah, it's kind of balancing it out.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like I definitely because I walk the kids to school, again, getting out in nature and exposing to that morning sun. So I've always got like a little visor on because I don't wear sunglasses. I haven't worn sunglasses for it must be over 2 years now. Which people think I'm crazy.
Yeah, so tell me about that. That's something I wanted to ask about. Why did you stop wearing them?
Yeah, because I learned about, again, through this circadian journey and learning all the things that Dr. Jack Kruse talks about and other people like Dr. Doug Wallace. And basically, when we put sunglasses on that have a dark filter on them, we are essentially blocking that sunlight, that natural sunlight that goes into our iris and sends the signal to our master control center, which sends the rest to all the internal circadian clocks. So we're kind of blocking that beautiful sunlight from entering into our iris. And what's interesting, I mean, I've always worn sunglasses my entire life. And when I heard about this, I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a crack. And when the first time I walked out with no sunglasses on, my eyes just welled up. They started stinging, and I was like, look, like I was crying because my eyes were so desensitized from the natural light. I don't know how many people just pop their sunglasses on. It's a natural, it's an automatic, thing to put your sunglasses on as soon as you walk outside. So I reckon it took me a couple of weeks to really just to desensitize my eyes again and really get used to the natural light. And since I just haven't looked back since. I think it's very careful and very important to note we don't look directly into the sun. That would obviously be damaging for the eye. I certainly don't do that, but I wear a visor instead, especially during the midday sun when the UV is at its highest, or around the 2 o'clock mark when I walk to school to get the kids. And also out in the boat, because the reflection of the water can be damaging for your eyes. I use my visor as well. And, some people might need to actually use their sunglasses then. That would be a time to use sunglasses. But otherwise, I think that was one of the key little tweaks that I made at the beginning of this journey to really set up my circadian rhythm and just really start to have those beautiful deep sleeps as well. And honestly, I think it's helped with my meditation journey too. Really, having a beautiful sync circadian rhythm with nature and the sun has helped me to, go deeper into those meditations. So that's been a really profound thing for me.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. And I talked to you a while back about wearing sunglasses, and I've stopped wearing them since, but the only time I wear them is if I'm out on a boat or if I'm driving during those times where there's a lot of reflection off of other cars. That's
Mm.
just why I just keep them in my car. And I find it's so nice now it took me a while to get used to it, but it's incredible to go outside and not wear sunglasses, and you just feel so much more energized. You don't come back
Mm.
tired. You're not tricking yourself into thinking it's nighttime or evening. And yeah, it's been such an incredible change. I really, really enjoyed that.
Mm.
And I personally love like going barefoot. My kids, they pretty much don't wear shoes. I don't even know if we have shoes that fit them right now, but sometimes it's problematic when we go to certain places and shoes are required. But most places in Australia, we're lucky and we don't have to wear shoes. And yeah, it's just one of my favorite things to do is just to like walk on grass or get my feet barefoot on the sand or in the ocean. And it just is, it's a feeling I can't even describe, but it's just like the best. And this is something that you're a strong advocate for. This is that grounding, right? Or earthing. Can you tell us a little bit about why grounding is important and what it is?
Yes, take off your shoes, walk outside, find that beautiful patch of dirt or grass or sand, whatever it may be, and just ground your feet. And feel that connection to the earth. Like you can literally feel the electrons, the earth's surface is negatively charged with electrons and from the sun. And when you connect your bare feet to the earth, these electrons send like this electrical current up through your body, which if you're really connected into the earth, you can feel that. And that really fires up the ATP, the energy part in your mitochondria, which is all the energy currency of your cells. So yeah, it makes you feel alive and energized. And grounding is said to be nature's antioxidant. It provides us with the energy, the endurance, like a beautiful positive mindset, helps us with sleep, helps to reduce pain. And it's really just our natural flow and rhythm, isn't it? I just love grounding. I get every morning, I get the kids out first thing. I say, guys, go ground your feet before we do anything. They have to go outside and ground their feet. And they understand because I've sort of educated them a little bit around why they do it and the benefits of it. So they go out, and for me, I'm out first thing in the morning. And I just, like I said earlier, I just ground my feet and I just say my gratitudes, what I'm grateful for the day. And with the kids, when they wake up, they go out and they generally copy what I do, because I'll do like, lift my arms up and do a little prayer, and it's so cute. I often catch them out there doing that as well. But there's a really great documentary called The Earthing Movie. It's The Remarkable Science of Grounding. It's on YouTube, and I highly recommend going to watch it. I watched that, a couple of years ago, and that was really a pivotal, like, again, light bulb moment. Like, wow, we literally have this at our doorstep, and we take it for granted. I think shoes, they've been obviously, a pivotal part of our life, and they make our life comfortable. But I think shoes, we're meant to be barefoot, right?
Yeah.
We walked barefoot on the earth throughout the entire of human history until recently, when shoes were invented, and our high-rise buildings were built, and workspaces and all that. And unfortunately, we've just become disconnected to nature and to earth. And you've got to remember that we are one with nature, animals, plants, humans. We are all one at the end of the day. We all vibrate on the same frequency. And just if you're feeling disconnected, if you're feeling stressed, or if you've got some kind of illness, or you're feeling sick or whatever, my biggest advice is to get outside, take your shoes off, ground your feet in the earth, and just sit on a chair. So when I'm feeling a little bit like flustered, I'll grab a chair, sit out on the grass, put my feet firmly on the ground and just face towards the sun, close my eyes and just sit there for, 5-10 minutes. Just, it brings you back to reality, I think, to what's really important here on, planet Earth. So yes, I love this topic, and it's something I've actually just done from a kid naturally. I think we all kids, like no kids like wearing shoes. And it's kind of unnatural to put something on our feet or on ourselves in general when, when a baby's born, the first thing we do is put clothes on it. Whereas humans we're meant to be naked, we're meant to be barefoot, and we're meant to be in sync with the natural rhythms of the sun, the earth, the moon, the food that we eat seasonally, the water, everything. So it's all connected.
It is all connected. And you're so right that we start off innately knowing this, and then we train ourselves, or our society trains us to do otherwise, to do things that are unhelpful. And it just makes me think, like, I remember being in chemists, being really feeling anxious because the lighting was so bright in those buildings. And then contrast that with when you're outside and you just feel calm, your perspective opens, you just feel more energized. It's such a polar opposite feeling being in that artificial intense lighting versus outside. And if we could learn to connect more with how we're feeling in the various environments that we're in, I think naturally we will transition to living more in tune with nature, connected to nature, and naturally get back into those circadian rhythms. Do you think that that's the case if we start connecting with our intuition and checking in with ourselves?
Yeah. And, like, definitely, I think so much of it comes down to our light environment. And this is a big one that I love talking about and educating people on, is the hygiene of our light, what we're exposed to. During the day, naturally, like we spoke about, it's important to be surrounded and have that natural sunlight during the day, and really reduce, even throughout the day, reducing our artificial blue light indoors. So inside of our house during the day, we don't have any lights on at all. We just let the natural sunlight come in. And then as, before sunset, there's some things that we've kind of adopted over the years. So we will sort of eat dinner, before the last light. So I'm always cooking dinner early, and the kids are eating it generally outside. We, are lucky to live up in the north of WA, and it's pretty amazing weather the whole year round, besides summer where it's like 45 plus degrees. But the kids are often outside eating. If not, they're at the kitchen bench, but again, we don't use any lights. We just got the natural sunlight. And then as the sun goes down, we've got these yellow bulbs that we use. So rather than candles, just because the kids are young and I don't really want fire in the house while they're 1, 4, and 6. So we use yellow bulbs, and rather than LEDs, we do have LEDs obviously on the roof, but they very rarely get turned on. And so the reason we do that is because I remember a comment that Dr. Jack Kruse mentioned one time was, he said, the light in which we eat under is more important than the food we eat, as artificial light is actually detected through the eyes and the skin, and will actually change the signaling of our body's processes such as metabolism. So that was like a really wow, profound moment for me. So if we're eating this beautiful organic food, and sitting at the table, but we're bathing in artificial light, it can actually be changing our metabolism, how we're actually metabolizing that food. So interesting. And then, we turn off all tech. So all tech basically is turned off by 4 o'clock anyway, TV, etc. And we start to wind down with the sun, without any artificial light, computer screens, and etc. It's interesting, a little fact that I found, that on average, people have around 10 plus devices on after sunset, which is completely disrupting their circadian rhythm and depleting their melatonin. So I just say, you know, take control of your technology and don't let it control you, because that's really what's happening. So, you know, once the sun has gone down, we just avoid as much blue light as possible. If I needed to use my computer, which I pretty well never use it at night, I would use it in the morning if so. But I've got this software called Iris, which anyone can download. It's Iris, IRIS. And it basically will pretty much reduce all the blue light in the computer screen. So you can pretty much turn the computer screen to red, or like at the moment, even though it's 10 a.m. in the morning in WA, I've still got it on a very kind of yellow screen. I never have it on the full capacity. Same thing with my phone, an iPhone or a couple of the other phones. You can actually, there's a way that you can change your screen to red. So I've had that for a couple of years now. So as the sun goes down, it's like a triple click on the side button, and my screen is red, and that'll stay red until the sun comes up the next morning. So again, I just don't have any exposure to blue light on my phone or my computer if I was to use it at nighttime. And then, you know, all your other pesky little lights that you've got around, like smoke alarms and air cons, like all these little lights, they're all emit a blue light. Even the fridge. So this might sound a little crazy to some, but I've even got some red cellophane and cellophane, sorry. And I've actually pulled the plastic cover off, and underneath I've not onto the actual light itself, but underneath it, I've actually stuck the red cellophane. So when I open the fridge, like say if I need to open the fridge in the morning to do my lemon water, I am not immediately exposing my iris to this ridiculous bright light. It's more of like an orangey color. So it's just all the little tips and tricks to really keep your circadian rhythm, and just avoiding that blue light as much as possible on your skin and your eyes, because they've both got the photoreceptors in them. And most importantly, ensuring no blue lights between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. Because if you're exposed to artificial light in that time, it can actually suppress the release of dopamine, which is, you know, depleting dopamine. It actually, it's interesting, red light at night won't trigger the depletion of dopamine, but artificial light will. So we do use red lights at night in the bathroom, so the kids can see when they go to the toilet. We've just got a little plug-in, which has got a little red bulb on the top. And the kids have also got these little glow dreamers, which emit a very light red light, so they can see at nighttime. So that's all we will use after the kids have gone to bed, is red lights. And we no longer stay up and watch TV at nighttime, which, you know, we've all been there and done that, right? And a lot of us probably still are. If I was to stay up and watch a movie, I do have some red lens glasses, but that is very few and far between that I actually do that, because my natural circadian rhythm is I'm ready for bed. You know, the sun goes down, we put the kids to bed, and my hubby and I are in bed by 8 o'clock at night.
So are we.
So then, you know, this follows through to when we wake up. So we wake up ideally with the natural light. I personally don't, because I wake up to an alarm. I have a little birdies chirping. That's my alarm, because I like to get up, you know, at least an hour earlier to the kids. That's just really to ground me into my body and just, you know, have that beautiful nervous system reset before the kids wake up and the chaos starts. So I do wake up earlier, especially it's coming into winter. So the sun is up a lot later. In the summer, I would wake up naturally to the lights. I'd have the blinds cracked and wake up naturally. But otherwise, I am waking up to a alarm, which is fine. But yeah, just letting your eyes adjust to the morning light before watching a screen or turning an LED light on. That would be my number one tip for waking up in the morning, is to just first thing wake up and go outside, ground your feet and just let your solar panels be exposed to nature.
Yeah, that's such a doable thing that we can all do, right? And it has such a big impact. So I love that. Those are some really, really useful tips. And there's so many things that we can do. You can just start with one, putting your feet on the earth, or putting that red light app on your phone, just starting with one step and then building on there. And over time, I imagine pretty quickly you'd start to really notice that your energy is coming back, you're sleeping better, you're getting to sleep earlier, you're waking up naturally, feeling refreshed. I think this is all really exciting. And it's something that we innately know, but it's so good to put that science and the biology behind it to understand it. Because sometimes as adults, we really need to know that cognitively, even though our bodies and just innately it's good to have both sides of it, that experience and that research.
Yes.
So are there any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think just getting back to being one with nature, I think, and just understanding that our bodies rely entirely on Mother Nature, the sun, the earth, and all the natural rhythms, because our entire circadian internal clock one tip for this entire podcast is just to walk outside, take your feet off, and it just expose your solar panels to the beautiful sun, and using your intuition and being sun responsible.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for being here today. Is there a way that people can connect with you, whether it's social media, or do you have a website? What are the best places that people can go to find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Jessica Louise Wellbeing, and same with my website, jessicalouisewellbeing.com. You can find me on all of those avenues.
Great. Thank you so much, Jess.
Thank you so much for having me. It was I absolutely loved talking about this. So thank you for inviting me on your podcast.